Okay, well, how about in the interest of time, we go ahead and get started, and then as people join, I will add them in. We have one more right now. So I'm Tara Hilt. I am on the NETA board, and I work for the University of New Hampshire as a senior assistant director of admission. I love working with NETA, and I'm super excited that even in this crazy year, we've been able to find a way to still learn from each other in this format. So thanks so much for putting together this session, Rebecca. As Rebecca just mentioned, and you'll see on the screen too, we are going to be using crowd.live today. So maybe you've used that in other sessions and maybe you haven't. If you have not, you use your mobile device, go to crowd.live on the internet, and then the code that you'll need to enter to participate is there at the bottom of the screen too. It's NETA 2. So I don't want to take up too much time, but just know that I'll have a few more announcements at the end of the session. So if you can just stick around after the session, I'll let you know a few more details, just housekeeping items. I'll also be trying to monitor the chat. So if you have questions, you can put it there and I will try to speak them out so Rebecca can keep going. Thanks so much. And without further ado, this is Rebecca Siggelkoe from Bunker Hill Community College, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about supporting college-wide retention efforts with TES. Thanks, Rebecca.
Thank you, Tara. Hi, everybody. I'm really happy to be here to be able to share with you guys about some of the things that we've been doing at Bunker Hill Community College around retention and the use of the College Sources TES transfer evaluation system technology and how that's supported us. There we go. I thought my button was stuck for a minute there. So my name is Rebecca Siggelkoe. I use she and her pronouns. I am the coordinator of enrollment, articulation, and transfer at BHCC. I've actually been at BHCC for a little over 10 years now, but most of that time I was serving as an academic advisor. But in the last almost 2 years, I've been in this role, working very intensely with our transfer in processes and with our articulation agreements as well. I'm really passionate about higher public education. I attended Bunker Hill Community College and graduated with an associate's degree there, and then I transferred to UMass Boston for my bachelor's and master's degree. I had also attended some community colleges prior to coming to Bunker Hill, so I'm very familiar with the transfer experience from a student perspective. I'm also an avid dog lover, and I love dancing. So today, just to give you a brief overview of what we'll be talking about, I'm going to give you a really brief introduction to Bunker Hill in case you're not familiar with it. I'm going to talk with you a little bit about our holistic student support redesign project for persistence and retention. I'll share with you a little bit of information about our transfer student data and then our goals for improving the transfer in experience at Bunker Hill. I'm also going to talk with you about some of the challenges that we've had with the transfer in process. And I will also talk with you about TES and transferology. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the software, I'll give you a very brief introduction. And then we will go over some of the objectives that we had in improving our systems and then our progress thus far. I do want to make a note that in this presentation, I'm going to say the word transfer students a lot, but I'm really talking specifically about students transferring into Bunker Hill. So students who attended previous institutions and then transferred to BHCC. So I'm not really talking about students leaving Bunker Hill to go somewhere else. But if you need clarification or if I get confused with that, just let me know and I will try and clarify. But I know we can use transfer students to describe a lot of different types of students. Okay, so here's where our polling questions will come in. So first question to get started, I'd just like to know if you're from a 2-year or a 4-year institution. So please go ahead and use your device and you can vote on there. Okay, so I got a couple responses. More coming in. I think this is so fun. So I'm a tech nerd. Okay, so it looks like most of you are from a 4-year institution. Let's go to the next one. So we got 5 people from a 4-year institution and 2 people from the 2-year, which is probably Brian and myself, which are both here. So the next question is, are you familiar with College Sources Transfer Evaluation System, or TES, or TES? Okay, so it looks like we have a few people that are already familiar, but most of you have not been using this technology. Okay, that's great to know. And then finally, are you familiar with Transferology? This is another platform offered by College Source. Okay, great. So it looks like it's exactly split down the middle. So half of you are and half of you aren't. So I do want to mention that I think College Source is going to maybe be offering some information sessions tomorrow, or like a coffee break that you might be able to attend. And they also offer free webinars about their technology. So I'm not going to get very in depth about you know, kind of the mechanics of how those programs work, but I know that there's opportunities for free that you can use them. And then my final question, because I think icebreakers are really cheesy and I'm kind of a cheesy person, so I would like to know if you could magically acquire a talent you would most like to be able to, and you can choose an answer. Okay, so I've got a couple people that want to sing. I sing terribly, but I love singing. Like karaoke is one of my favorite things to do, but it's really painful for everyone around me. We've got a dancer, play an instrument, fly planes, understand the math of astrophysicists. If anybody out there can do all of these, please send me an email because I need you to be my guru. Okay, that was really fun. So I think I'm with you guys with the singing though. That is the talent I would most like to have. So intro to BHCC. We are the largest community college in Massachusetts. We offer associate degrees and certificates, and we also have a division of continuing education and workforce development. Our enrollment from fall 2020 was just under 10,000 students, and our average student age is 26. In the fall, we had 522 international students from 83 countries. I'll note that this is really a drastic reduction from what we usually see in our international students, but we all know that that student group is really impacted by COVID. But we are one of the most diverse colleges in the nation and one of the most diverse in Massachusetts. We are also the most affordable community college in Massachusetts, with $220 per credit hour is our cost. And we're also an Achieving the Dream Leader College, and we have been since 2011. Achieving the Dream is a nonprofit organization that works and partners with colleges to improve student completion, retention, and student success factors. So in our collaboration with Achieving the Dream, in the last couple of years, we've been taking on this holistic student redesign project. So this allowed us to really dive deep into some of our practices and policies at Bunker Hill, and to look really deeply at the services that we were offering to figure out in which ways do we present barriers to students, what are the ways that we are not necessarily facilitating with retention, and how can we make those changes. So in this work, we did a lot of process mapping, we did a lot of following the entire student experience, we reviewed policies, and we had a lot of input from some of the coaches from Achieving the Dream to help us improve our practices. So through this work, we were able to identify 5 key institutional practices that we realized were really important to support student success and retention. And that was, first of all, we had to change our culture. So we had to establish a campus-wide shared responsibility for success and retention. We had to recognize that student retention doesn't just belong within enrollment management. It doesn't just involve faculty or student support services, that this is a truly campus-wide collaborative process. We also need to build meaningful connections with students. So increase those touch points that we have with students and the relationships that we build with them. We need to monitor student progress and needs. So we need to make sure that we're doing better student tracking. We need to leverage our targeted data and technology across the institution. So that means using more predictive analytics. That means really looking at some of our data and trying to identify gaps, and improving the technology that we were using. For example, we found that with a lot of the software that we had at the college, we weren't necessarily using it to its fullest capacity. And we, of course, had to reimagine institutional policies and practices with a lens towards retention. So really taking a look at some of our practices, identifying barriers, and realizing how we can make changes to support our students in completion. So that being said, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the students that are transferring into BHCC. this is our new student enrollment. So this is just for students who are new to Bunker Hill. And you can see in fall 2019, we had just under 3,400 students enrolling for the first time at BHCC. And of those, about 950 were transferring from another institution. Spring, we had a little bit less. We had quite a drop in our enrollment that semester. So we had 2,000 new students and 678 were transferring and so on. So in recent years, since fall 2019, we've actually seen a smaller percentage of our students are transferring into Bunker Hill from our new student enrollments. But historically, it's typically been between 30 to 40% of our new students are transferring from another institution. So they are not first time at college students. And then we know that about nearly half of the students that transfer into Bunker Hill are coming from four-year institutions. So they're not coming from other community colleges. About half of them are coming from 4 years. And of our top 10 sending schools, about 4 of them are four-year colleges or universities. And so we all know that there's a variety of reasons why students might choose to leave a four-year institution to come to a community college. So when we wanted to really dive into the work of retention and persistence, we did some cohort tracking data. So this is from a sample of students that first enrolled in fall 2014. And we took a look at what was happening with those students as their semesters progressed. So we saw that of the students that first enrolled in fall 2014, we had retained 65% of those. So that's represented in the blue bar. So 65% enrolled at Bunker Hill the following semester. 13% of those students transferred to another institution, and 22% of those students had dropped out. So they didn't enroll at Bunker Hill, and they also did not transfer to another school. Important to note in this data, the red bars are graduation. So those are students that completed an associate's degree. And it's really not until after 3 years that we start to see really that jump in graduation, and that would be in fall 2017, it's 9%. But as we can tell from this data, that's obviously not the numbers that we want to be going for. We want to be aiming for a much higher number. I should also mention in this data that about 70% of our students are part-time, so it's not uncommon that it would take them more than 2 years to complete an associate's degree. So this is a similar cohort tracking where we took a sample of students who had first transferred into Bunker Hill, and we saw that from students that are transferring, actually this is true for our transfer students and for our native students, that students that begin in the spring, we tend to have less persistence into the following fall semester. So persistence is usually better for students that begin in the fall going into the spring semester. And that's represented here in this data, where we see that students who started or transferred into Bunker Hill for spring 2016, only 40% of those persisted. We had a larger number of those transfer out, so about a quarter of those students went to another institution, but we had a stop out of 35%. So that was a pretty, disappointing number to see, that 35% of our students just didn't transfer anywhere else. They didn't come back to Bunker Hill, and we'd love to know what happened with them. So this really tells the story that yes, we need to do a lot more to be retaining these students. And you can see similar rates of graduation here. So it really takes a couple years for those rates to go up, but still, even after 3 years, we still only had a 7% graduation. So to kind of wrap this up, we realized that nearly 1/4 to 1/3 of our students will not enroll or transfer after their first semester. Those are dropout students, like we've lost them. And within 3 years, only about 7 to 12% will have earned an associate's degree at BHCC. And, I think especially the majority of you here from four-year colleges, you know how important that is, because of course, completing an associate's degree is a really strong predictor of completion of a bachelor's degree. So given this data, it was really clear what our goals needed to be: retain more transfer students and increase graduation rates. So here, I'm just going to ask you to participate and tell me what some of the challenges are that you experience with students who are transferring into your institution. So I've listed a few things here. These might be a little bit more relatable for folks coming from community colleges, but there's also another option that you can type in if you'd like. And that option actually might come next. So, but go ahead and take a look and see which ones you face. And I'm not sure if you can pick more than one. Oh no, you can only pick one. So I guess pick whatever one is the most relatable to you. So far I'm seeing students don't submit official transcripts. That is definitely true. Evaluations are time consuming. 3 people wrote that, that's for sure. One person responded that academic departments take too long to provide feedback or evaluate courses. That's also been a struggle. Give another moment. Does anyone want to unmute and add something, or do they want to type something in the chat? Yes, equivalency databases become outdated or inaccurate. Yes, I know, like we used to have a file at Bunker Hill called the Black Book that had a list of equivalencies in it that often had a lot of courses that we didn't even have anymore listed in there. So that's a challenge. Advising meetings are difficult without transcripts, absolutely. It's really hard to help students understand what they need or what they're going to, how much longer they have to complete if they haven't brought us their transcripts. And of course, we can't always rely on them to be able to tell us what courses they take because they're not sure how they would transfer. It can be confusing. Okay, and so now if you wanted to type other, you can, or of course you can just type it in the chat, or if you want to unmute, you can speak up as well. I think somebody in my neighborhood is honking their horn really loud, so I apologize if you can hear that in the background. Okay, so let's move on. So here's some of the challenges that we had at Bunker Hill, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate with these issues, but students often had to wait until their first semester had already begun to receive an evaluation of their transcripts and transfer credits. So because of the processes that we were using previously, transcript evaluations were taking a very long time. We had such a big volume of transcripts. We only had primarily 2 or 3 people doing those evaluations. And of course, all 2 or 3 of us shared responsibilities, like we had other things that we needed to be doing. So the sheer volume and then the processes that we were using made it a very long process. So students that were applying to Bunker Hill even as late as like mid-July would still not necessarily have transfer credit awarded to their accounts until after the semester had started, because our turnaround time was between 4 to 8 weeks. So that was really challenging for the students, and of course challenging for our advisors who are trying to help those students get started. We didn't have a database of equivalencies that other offices could use to help facilitate advising and like helping students through the admissions process. During new student orientation, they weren't able to assist students with what courses would come in. So that was really challenging. So even if a student had an unofficial transcript, our advisors weren't really well equipped to be able to answer a lot of the questions about transferability just because they didn't have a database to use. Our transcript evaluations lacked consistency, efficiency, and transparency. So what I mean by that, because we didn't have a database when a course was evaluated, I might evaluate it one way, but that's not recorded. And then another advisor might evaluate it another way. It's not recorded. So that same course could perhaps come in a variety of different ways, depending on who the evaluator is. Of course, as I said, efficiency was a big issue because prior to using college sources, TES, and transferology, we were using Google to search for like college catalogs and to look up course descriptions. So that was time consuming. And then of course, there was no transparency. Nothing was ever published, so nobody could really refer to the equivalency database or know how courses would transfer in. And then, of course, because of the volume of transcripts that we were completing, we had very limited time to offer more comprehensive student support. And so we weren't offering a lot of one-on-one advising. We weren't doing a lot of group transfer advising sessions. We weren't able to really think really intentionally to create support services for our students that were trying to prepare to transfer out to their next destination, just because the transcript evaluations were usurping so much of our time. So our previous process looked something like this. We would receive an official transcript. Transfer services would evaluate the transcript using online catalogs and comparing course descriptions. We would email academic departments for consultation when needed. The evaluation would be turned to our academic records office for data entry, and the entire process was usually taking between 4 to 8 weeks. So now I'm going to shift to tell you just a little bit about TES and transferology, but maybe I should stop right now just to check in and see if anybody has any questions. No? Okay, well, feel free to stop me if something comes up for you. But TES and transferology are software platforms that are offered by College Source. There's two different programs, but they complement each other very well. So TES is an internal facing platform. So that is what we use. I am our campus administrator for the TES platform, but we have a lot of people that are using it in the role of transfer advisors or course evaluators. TES allows you to research courses through their catalog. They have a database that has over 154,000 catalogs from colleges. So it's pretty rare that I come across a transcript from a school that doesn't have their catalog in the TES database. And it has over 125 million courses. So when we're doing those transcript evaluations, when we come across a course that isn't already in our database, it's very easy to find information on that course and then send that to our academic departments for evaluation. So TES allows you to send and track course evaluations. It also has a lot of options, like you can upload a syllabus or learning outcomes. You can leave notes and the person doing the evaluation can leave notes back. And you can also very easily track, for example, if an evaluation has been waiting or pending for more than a few days, in one click, I can send an email to remind that faculty member that they have that evaluation waiting for them. TES also allows you to manage equivalencies. So I know one person in the chat had mentioned that equivalencies become outdated or invalid. This software has a lot of tools that allow you to very quickly make those updates. I know at Bunker Hill, the amount of curriculum changes we have is dizzying at times. Like we do a lot of changes with our curriculum and a lot of updates. And so TES allows me to very easily make sure that our databases are up to date. So when we retire a course, I can make sure that that course is undated in our system. When we've added a new course, replaced a new course, then I'm also able to make those updates almost instantly. So being able to stay on top of that has just made, again, really enhanced the integrity of our equivalency database. And then transferology is the student-facing platform. So essentially, once an equivalency is created in TES, if you also have the transferology software, then that course equivalency will be published in transferology that prospective and current students can use to look up how their courses will transfer to your institution. So essentially, students can input the courses that they've taken. They'll see which colleges have equivalencies for it, and they can also use a lot of functions to filter out specific stumbling my words. They can filter specific locations. They can filter by the type of institution. They can filter by the tuition cost. So they can really narrow down their focus, but looking specifically at schools that have their have equivalencies for their courses. And then for schools that don't have an equivalency, students can request information directly to those institutions. And so just like the kind of basic guide that works here is courses evaluated in TES, the equivalency is created in TES, and then the equivalency is published in transferology. And so for those that are unfamiliar, this is just a quick snapshot of what the TES database looks like. So on the left-hand side, you can see these courses from Austin Community College, and on the right-hand side, you can see how those courses transfer into BHCC. If you were to click on the little play buttons on the left-hand side, it would give you more detailed information about the equivalency. So you would see the sending schools course and the description, and then the way it equates to at Bunker Hill. And if you have certain permissions in TES, you would also be able to see the entire log of the evaluation history. So you can see who initiated the evaluation, who evaluated the course, decisions that were made. You can see if there was any notes included and when the equivalency was created. So you always have a record for every course that's been evaluated. And then this is just a little snapshot of a view from transferology. So this student studied at Miami-Dade College. They input 4 classes and they wanted to see where those would transfer. So you can see on the left-hand side, the schools that had 100% match, meaning they had equivalencies for all of their courses, will appear at the top of their search list. And like I said before, students can narrow down their searches. So you can see this yielded results from Boston, Minnesota, California, South Carolina. So students are able to really narrow down their search. So if they're only looking in one specific area, they would only see those results. And then you can see here that on the right-hand side, the Bunker Hill equivalent courses are listed. So the student would know how their classes from Miami-Dade are going to come to BHCC. And again, if we didn't have an equivalency for a course, students can also send us an outreach to ask how their courses will transfer in. So this was a message that I got just a few weeks ago from a student who wanted to know how their courses from Austin Community College would transfer into Bunker Hill. So once I have the system set up so that these requests come to me, so once I receive one of these requests, I will create an evaluation in TES for all 3 of these courses. I'll send them off to the academic departments. And then once I have an answer, I will communicate back with the student, let them know how their courses will transfer, link them to information about transferring into BHCC so they can read more about our transfer policies, and also give them a really soft handoff to our admissions department. So it's a really great way to have a connection with students before they've even applied to your institution. Any questions about this so far? Okay, we'll move on. So in thinking about all of this work about retention and seeing some of the challenges that we had, we needed to make some really specific objectives. So of course, one of the first things that we wanted to commit to was to making our transfer evaluations and the transfer credit awarding process much more efficient. We needed to do it faster. 4 to 8 weeks was just not working for our students. It wasn't working for advisors, and it really wasn't working for us as well. We needed to improve the transparency and the accuracy in the transfer process for students, staff, and faculty. So I think I mentioned in the beginning that I'm a transfer student. I understand the anxiety that comes with transferring sometimes, and this is a really important part of the transfer process. Like, students are anxious. They want to know how their courses will transfer. Students are cost conscious. They want to make sure that the courses that they've taken will count. And so this is a great way to really improve that experience for students and take away some of that anxiety, because they're seeing how their courses will transfer. And in the cases occasionally where courses don't transfer, they're also getting that information in the forefront so we can have a conversation with them about it. We also wanted to make sure that our advisors have the tools to conduct comprehensive first semester advising for transfer students. So we're really trying to move away from just like helping a student register during those first advising meetings. We want to also incorporate as much academic planning into those advising meetings as possible. And one way that we can really support that is by giving our advisors the tools to have really informative sessions with these students. So in the case that a student has not yet submitted an official transcript and we only have an unofficial transcript to work with, we want our advisors to be able to look at those transcripts, look at the database of equivalencies, and let students know exactly how their courses will transfer. So to meet that first objective, we had to do a couple things. First and foremost, we needed to build the database. So I'm not going to get into too much detail about it, but for schools who are considering maybe getting this technology, you can certainly reach out to me and I'd be happy to share more details about how we took on this project. But phase 1 actually happened before I began in this role. And the first phase was to upload the equivalencies that we had in our student information system. And we use Colleague as our system. And so uploading the equivalencies that we had just for our Massachusetts public colleges and universities. So those equivalencies were separated and then uploaded into TES. They had also been checked in advance by our academic departments who reviewed the quality of the equivalencies on like an Excel spreadsheet. That didn't work great. We got some equivalencies in there, but there were a lot of errors. So when phase 2 started, I had the opportunity to learn a little bit from some of the mistakes made in the first one. So when we did phase 2 of uploading existing private and out-of-state school equivalencies, we actually did all of the reviews for the equivalencies in the TES software itself. So rather than looking at spreadsheets, the department chairs and the deans were looking at course equivalencies in TES, which made it, I think, a lot easier, because rather than just looking at course numbers and asking them to look up information in a catalog, they were able to read course descriptions as they were and were able to request more information if needed. And then finally, phase 3 in spring 2020, we began evaluating all of our domestic transcripts with TES. So we don't use it for international transcripts, but all of our domestic transcripts go through TES. And we also began doing our transcript evaluations completely electronically. We were really moving in that direction, but COVID made it kind of necessary, which was a good thing in many ways, to get that process entirely digital. So we don't use paper anymore. And so finally, for our first objective, we also needed to expand the use of TES across campus. So we have transfer advisors, academic records staff, and our associate registrars all participated in the TES basic certification course. So this was super helpful to get to really share information across campus, to elevate transfer across campus, and to get people talking about it. We wanted people to be familiar with the technology and the software. So we did that training. Then I conducted training with more than 30 staff from admissions offices, Student Central, and academic advising to teach them all how to use TES to view equivalencies during advising meetings. And just so you know, our Student Central office, this is the office that works with all of our guest students. So students who are not matriculated into a degree program at Bunker Hill.
Rebecca, can I interrupt you for a second? We do have a quick question in chat.
Yes, I see.
Does TES help with military transcripts as well? I don't know if you want to address that in a second.
So there is a capacity that you can build into TES military equivalencies. I don't actually use it for that purpose. We have a separate department called our Prior Learning Office that actually evaluates those military transcripts. And we looked at some of the existing options within TES for military coursework, and the coordinator of our Prior Learning Office felt that some of those weren't a great fit. So we opted not to use it for that reason, but I know that some schools do. So it has that capacity for sure. I will add also that we did also include AP scores and CLEP exam scores into our database. So students also can look that up online, as well as our advising staff or anybody else in the college that might need to know how certain AP scores or certain CLEP scores would transfer in. And then finally, I conducted evaluator trainings with all of our academic department chairs, our assistant deans and deans. So those are the folks that are looking at our course equivalencies and approving them, denying them, requesting more information, etc. So essentially, more people on campus are really informed about TES, the technology that we have, and how important transfer is for all of us. Okay, so objective 2 was to improve the transparency and accuracy of the transfer credit process. So again, I already mentioned this, that we needed to make sure that the database that we were going to publish publicly had integrity. So having that academic department input and collaboration on our equivalencies has been really helpful. Sometimes, like, we have general education courses and we have courses within the mass transfer database that don't have to go through the departments, but essentially any course that's like specific to a program or to a major is usually evaluated by either the department chair or the assistant dean or dean. As I just mentioned, we collaborated with the Prior Learning Office to include AP and CLEP exam equivalencies. And then we also have the ability to maintain the accuracy of these equivalencies by using the tools incorporated into TES. So I mentioned that we always have like a ton of curriculum changes that happen at Bunker Hill, and we only update our catalog every 2 years. So in between those catalog updates, I'm doing a lot of these kind of ad hoc changes within TES. So for example, if a course is retired, I can enter that information into TES to make sure it doesn't continue to transfer in. And then finally, our final objective was to ensure that advisors have the tools to conduct comprehensive first semester advising for transfer students. So I really can't stress the importance of this enough, because, and even actually when I was in a conference last week, we were talking about some of the struggles and the pain points that students have had. And there was this big study that was done to really look at the perceptions of transfer students. And one of the things that they said was most valuable for them in like making the transfer experience better and less painful was the support of an academic advisor. So being able to give these tools to our advisors that were then able to have much more productive and yeah, I guess productive is really the word, but also just like reduce anxiety with those students, to have those meetings just be overall much more holistic and to help those students plan has been so invaluable. So if the students have submitted official transcripts, we're trying to get those evaluated and transfer credit on their count prior to their first advising session. So for example, if a student has signed up for an orientation, the assistant director will send me an email and say, hey, the student is going to be doing advising registration. I can see that they've just submitted their transcript. Can you get this evaluated before their meeting? In a lot of cases, we're able to do that. So that way they already have transfer credit awarded. If they're coming with an unofficial transcript, then we're able to use that unofficial transcript to give them information about how those courses will transfer once their official is submitted. So it's really transformed the services that we've been able to deliver to those students. And then just for a quick overview, official transcripts are received. The proposed equivalency is put into tests and then evaluated by the academic department. Transfer credit is awarded, and then that equivalency is stored in tests. It's stored in our student information system, and then it's published in Transferology. So then it becomes searchable by prospective students. So there is a lot of words on this slide, and I don't want to kill you with words, so I will just go over it really quickly. But again, on the left-hand side, I've really listed some of the challenges that we were having, and then some of our progress so far. And some of the things that I'll just highlight is, again, those first advising meetings are much more productive. Staff in all student-facing enrollment and advising offices have access to the test database, and I give them trainings pretty regularly to keep them up to date on changes that we have. And so they're making sure that they're really interacting with the tool. Our equivalencies are evaluated by designated faculty and academic departments, so we know that those equivalencies are good and we're not having to send things to the same people multiple times. They evaluate a course once and then it stays stored unless there's a change. Sending a course for an evaluation and test takes less than a minute. It is super fast, so it is much more efficient system than sending an email and having to attach like an unofficial transcript and having to copy and paste a course description. It's just so much quicker. And then of course there's the tracking tool that makes sure we're staying up to date, because we can send out an email, and I mean, I don't know about you, but especially in this digital time, it is really hard to keep track of every email that we send. So this software allows you to manage and track all of those evaluations. Students will know how their courses will transfer before they even apply to BHCC. So we have links to Transferology on our admissions web pages. We train our admissions advisors to use those tools. So hopefully our students in many cases are already aware of how their courses are going to transfer. And then finally, we are offering a lot more services in transfer services. My colleague, Brian Casey, is here today in this session. He presented a little bit earlier today about his work with Competitive College Week. So that's just one example of some of the great work that he's been doing, and some of our other transfer advisors at Bunker Hill. We really just did not have the capacity to do that kind of work before, because we were kind of shackled to our desks doing transcript evaluations. And so now we've been able to free up a lot more time to offer really intentional and really thoughtful and interesting supports to our students who are trying to plan for their transfer to their next institution. So I'm super impressed by the work of my colleagues and what they've been doing to offer all sorts of supports for our students, and they've been so creative to do a lot of different things during the pandemic and work from home. So it's really been great to be able to see the department flourish in that way. And thanks for your comment, Brian. Okay. And so also we now have over 8,600 equivalencies in our database that are stored in TES and Transferology. Our transcript evaluation turnaround is less than half the time than it was previously. In many cases, transcript evaluations are completed prior to a student's first advising meeting, and we have drastically increased our student-facing support services. And all of this work has really helped us support some of those key principles that we detailed in the Holistic Student Redesign Project. In terms of campus-wide shared responsibility, we really want to have this culture across campus that BHCC is a great place to transfer into. So if you're looking for a place to go, come transfer with us, because we're going to make this process as painless as possible. And part of that starts with just being really transparent about how we do the transfer evaluation process. And we're really trying to take that smoke and mirrors out of transfer. We're trying to build meaningful relationships with students. So by spending less time evaluating transcripts, we can really offer comprehensive and holistic services to them. Monitoring progress, of course, this is so important. And when we have students' transcripts evaluated prior to that first evaluation meeting, we're not just helping them register for that next semester, but also helping them to develop a plan for their time at Bunker Hill through completion of their degree. And the use of technology, of course, TES and transferology has been a big part of that. We're also using more predictive analytics to do our outreach and more data-informed support services. And then finally, policies and practices for retention. Of course, having students wait up to 2 months to get a transcript evaluation is not a good practice for retention. So transforming that has been so important. And then of course, the changes I spoke about and how it's really transformed our ability to work with students during their first advising session. So now I just want to open it up if there's any questions or comments. Anything anyone wants to share?
Rebecca, I just want to say thank you. That was a really, really great overview of your process in general. I know TES is a program I'd heard about, but didn't have a lot of knowledge about the ins and outs of TES and especially transferology. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, I hope that it's relatable given like if you're not familiar with the technology. Again, I know College Source does offer free webinars for people that are interested in the service. But you know, I'm not like paid by College Source or anything like that. I've asked them to, they said no. but yeah, like it's just, I was joking with Brian a couple of weeks ago, my colleague who's on the call here, and I said, like, I don't know if I could function if we went back to the old way of doing things. It just seems so archaic, like looking back before we had this technology. So that would be like a major blow for if we couldn't use it anymore, because it really, I mean, it's just been so transformative for us, especially given the amount of transcripts that we work with, because of course, the number of students, the transfer students that you see enrolling, we're receiving a lot more transcripts than that, because of course we have a lot of students that apply, a lot of students that send transcripts and they don't end up coming. So for just the few people that we are evaluating those transcripts, trying to do it the old-fashioned way was just, you know, the work was not as good as it could have been for obvious reasons. And then we just were duplicating work, because every time I got that same course from this college, I'm evaluating it again and again. And now it's like, okay, just click. Oh, yep, that's what that course is. That's what that course is. It's so much faster. Okay. Anything else?
Brian just sent the link to
oh yes, so I also included a link. So if you wanted to check out our database, there's a lot of equivalencies in there, but you can feel free to check that out. I know that's really long link to type out, so I think, Brian, yeah, so you should see it on your phone now. It's not super mobile friendly, so it looks, the formatting is a little weird, but you should be able to view everything regardless. Oh, thanks for sharing it in the chat as well, Brian.
Yeah, thank you. Any other remaining tidbits before I close up and redirect people to the survey and other events happening, Rebecca?
That's it for me. I'm so glad to be here, and this is my first time presenting at NETA, so thanks so much for having me, and thanks for coming.
Well, you nailed it. You did a great job. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Just want to let everyone know that I have put into the chat the link to the homepage for the NETA fair, the NETA conference, sorry. So if you want to, and I'll put it there at the very end too, so it doesn't get too buried. If you want to revisit that, that has again all of the links for tomorrow's sessions. This is the last like official session 1, 2, 3 breakout today, but we do have one more session remaining today that is called the first timers session. You can find the link. It starts at 4:30. You can find the link on that conference homepage there. Just a reminder that this doesn't have to be just for first timers. There is going to be live music there. So that's something I know I've been missing a lot during this time. So we welcome any of you to come and check that out. You can, like, I have a meeting right at 4:30, but I'm going to come in a little bit late. So if you need to do anything like that, definitely feel free. I also want to let you know that we're going to do an end of the day survey every day on the crowd.live source as well. So if you could go to your phone to crowd.live and put in the code NETA6, and I've put both of those things into the chat. That will give you the ability to kind of just give us some feedback on today's programming in general. I know not every session used crowd.live like Rebecca so seamlessly did today, but this will give you a chance to provide feedback there for all of your sessions this session. That's really all of the announcements that I have. Those of you planning to join us tomorrow and not coming to the first timer session tonight, thanks again for being here. But hopefully we'll see more of you for even more information sharing tomorrow. Thanks so much. Have a great day.
Thank you, everybody. Take care. Tara, thank you for your help today. And
You did such a great job. You were awesome.
Thanks. And thank you,
great.
Brian. I really appreciate it. That was like really fun to learn that program and to be able to use it in this. So thanks to you both. All right, I'm going to sign off. See you later.
See you later.
Bye, guys.
Sounds good. See you, everyone.
All
See you
right.
later,
We'll
Brian.
see ya. See ya. I gotta go to the bathroom, but I'll be back.
I bet you do. Great job today, Carolyn.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Like 15-minute breaks to use the bathroom, right?
Right.
Yes. All right.
So
Bye, Brian.